society, 1, do you feel that the best communities and neighborhoods are stable and diverse? 2, do you feel that the current property tax structure does or does not support stable and diverse neighborhoods? 3, and then if so, explain how. If not, how will you work to change the property tax structure, understanding that change must happen on both state and local levels to create a property tax system that adequately funds schools and governments and still promotes stable and diverse neighborhoods and communities? So you're really looking at stable and diverse communities and how do our communities create that? How do the funds help or not help this? So you want me to read it one more time?
Yeah, I really do. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
There's just a lot to unpack
Okay,
there.
ready? Given that governments and schools must be funded and that taxes are the price we pay for living in a civilized society, do you feel that the best communities and neighborhoods are stable and diverse? Do you feel that the current property tax structure does or does not support the stable and diverse neighborhoods? And if, explain how. And if, how, basically, how would you work to change the property tax structure, understanding both state and local level, to create a system that adequately funds schools and government and still promote stable and diverse neighborhoods?
Okay. Let me see what I can do.
Solve for world peace.
Okay, let me see what I can do.
Question, we can do an extra
Since
minute.
the more tenure
Okay.
the four of us gets to.
Okay,
Do you feel that the best communities and neighborhoods are stable and diverse?
absolutely. That's the easy part.
Do you feel that the current property tax structure does or does not support this stable and diverse neighborhood?
Further, I believe that the best schools are stable and diverse. There is a huge amount of research that a school with a diversity, as wide a diversity as possible, of race, of class, of socioeconomic level, of English language learners, of every possible variation on the theme of child, is the best school for everybody. And so I would say that stable and diverse neighborhoods support stable and diverse schools. One of our beloved principals used to say, you need to support the school in your community, and you need to support the community your school is in. And I believe that deeply. And I know that here in this neighborhood, you have made that an article of faith, and I thank you for that. As far as our current property tax structure, supporting stable and diverse neighborhoods, I am not the one to set the property tax structure. Typically in this state, and in fact nationwide, the county has been the entity which appraises, assesses, levies, and collects those taxes. There's been some efforts in some other parts of the country to move that to different local entities like school boards, but that's really complex and difficult work. And quite honestly, Atlanta Public Schools has enough on its plate that I don't know that we really want to take on the tax commissioner's job. What I do believe is that public education is a public good, and that everyone in our city should support our public schools with appropriate tax dollars. We have to do that. I do not support voucher programs. I do not support any kind of unlimited exemption from taxes, because I believe public education benefits us all. I would be open to looking at alternative ways to assess property taxes. I will also say that about 72% of our budget comes from property taxes. And so I would not be able to support anything that would make it more difficult for us to provide the resources that our children need for success every day. In the last 4 years, we've pushed millions upon millions of dollars down into the schoolrooms where they do the most good for our kids. We've given parents and principals local control over a huge number of those dollars through the Go Teams and through our new operating model. And so anything that would take away that flexibility and autonomy, I would oppose.
Short answer to your first question is yes. The longer answer is 10 years ago, the principal at Burgess Peterson Academy was brought to that school to build community. At that point, I was in the East Atlanta Community Association, I did not have a child. So this was right before my child was born. She reached out to us and said, how can you help me build community, change perception, and make this school better? So it's really easy to send your child to a school when the school already excels and the community already accepts it. It's really hard to make that choice when the school does not excel and the community does not accept it. But I made that choice because I want the choice that I had as a child to be in a diverse school, from income level, from race, from whatever you want to say. I made that choice at a time that choice was hard to make. And I'm very proud of that choice. So that's my yes to that. I'm going to give you a straight answer on the second one. Do I think that it supports diversity? I do not think it supports diversity. I don't think on the one hand that we can say we want generational, since this relates specific to your question, we cannot say we want generational and economic diversity in our schools, but then not want to have a conversation with how taxes relates to that. Cynthia is right. The big key to that question is state and city, and a big point of that. But we have to be able to bring people to the table that agree that we want that in our schools, but at the same time are willing to have a conversation about how that looks. Do I know how that looks? No, I don't know how that looks. But I do know that it can mean looking at age, looking at income, maybe a combination of the two, and at least have a conversation, run the number, and see how it affects those citizens as well as your school district, and be willing to say, I want this, and I'm going to do work to make it happen.
Hey.
How many minutes do you have?
We like brevity.
A minute and a half.
I mean, I could talk about more.
All right, Charlie.
So can I just recap for Michelle? Actually, no, I'm joking. So stable. Actually, it's for me. Stable and diverse communities, are they? That's
Do
what
you
we
feel
want.
that the best communities and neighborhoods are stable and diverse, and do you feel that the current property tax structure does or does not support these stable and diverse neighborhoods?
And if not, what would I do to change it? Okay, great. So I absolutely believe stable and diverse neighborhoods are critical to the education system. This goes back to our relationship with the city. The city controls a lot of zoning. The city controls permitting for events at parks all around our schools that happen sometimes during instructional time. And since we can't seem to get along with each other for whatever reason, there's no cooperation going on. And so in order for us to have stable communities, we have to have cooperation between the city and the school system. I also believe, though, that we need to talk about wraparound services for a second. Wraparound services go a very long way towards increasing stability in our neighborhoods. As a teacher, I would sometimes have kids that would come in and out of my class or in and out of my school several times throughout the year. And we have to realize that every school, every child, every classroom, every teacher, every parent has unique challenges. And that's where those wraparound services can come in to help with stability. I also believe that the current property tax structure absolutely does not support stability. We are completely dependent on the Fulton County Commission to give us our revenue that we're going to get from property taxes. I absolutely, I think I heard complex and difficult was something that we didn't necessarily want to go into. I like complex and difficult. I think that when we're taxing seniors out of their houses and neighborhoods are becoming gentrified, working class families can't afford their property taxes because the values of their homes are going up because of that said gentrification, and we're on a collision course and we've got to fix it. And I absolutely believe that Atlanta Public Schools should be working with the city, but also have a team that's dedicated to nothing but legislative outreach, because the legislature sets the tax structure for the school system. The school system does control the millage rate, and there are some things that can be done there. But with $1 billion budget, $20,000 per pupil approximately, I think we have enough money. We need to figure out how that money's being spent. What would I change? Like I said, I would work with the legislature to change the way that school property taxes are assessed. When you buy, I would advocate to the legislature that when you buy your house, that's the property tax rate that you're set. Your property tax can only increase no more than the amount of the cost of living adjustment that's provided by Social Security. I also believe in increasing some of the exemption for seniors. I believe that if we do this, not unlimited, but increasing the income amount for seniors, so that seniors who bought a house for $80,000 30 years ago that's now worth $500,000 aren't forced with having to make the decision of selling their house because they can't pay their property taxes or paying for their medication and food. Finally, the best way to stabilize neighborhoods and schools is to make sure that every school in the Atlanta public school system is of the highest quality so that parents are not having to send their kids to private school and then also having to pay property taxes that we simply can't afford. This, if we address it on the front end and we put the commitment into it on the front end and we address the complex and difficult problems, then we will have a huge return on our investment in the back end.
Okay, so yes, I absolutely believe that stable and diverse communities are great, and we live that. We have that at Grady, we have that at Inman. I think you see it throughout District 3. It's certainly growing in the Jackson cluster. I'm very impressed with the work that Mr. White has done at Burgess Peterson and Ms. Adamo has done at Tuma. The communities are really engaging with their schools, and absolutely, your community and your school has a symbiotic relationship where they both have to thrive to be successful. If one is not doing well, the other is not going to do well. It's just the way that it works. With respect to the taxes, that's a huge animal. Of course, yes, I would love to look and talk with county commissioners about how we assess property and how are those taxes decided upon, about who owes what and what's the value of that according to the city, and how that impacts short-term homeowners and long-term homeowners with the ability to stay in a house that they've purchased. With respect to what Atlanta Public Schools gets, the majority of its general fund comes from local tax dollars. And again, this is, and Cynthia mentioned, I was going to say it was about 3/4, and we got the exact 72%. This money has to just be better vetted, if you will, about where it's all going. Because while we say that we have driven dollars into the schoolhouses and that we've offered autonomy through local school governance teams, the GO teams, I'm sorry, but I just don't see it. I need to see more. Every budget that I have in any GO team meeting that I've gone to in the Grady cluster has gone strictly for human capital. We want to make sure that we have enough teachers to support the type of learning that our community demands. And that's smaller classrooms, that's remediation services, that's gifted teachers, that's arts, that's foreign language. I recently learned that arts, music is not in the Jackson cluster in some of their elementary schools. That's bizarre to me. That is unfair to me. So we have enough local dollars to help drive that, and that's what's going to create stability and diversity in the school, is its offerings, its school leadership, its teachers, our money going into that school. And I really think with a $1 billion budget, which again, the majority of the general fund, which is the roughly $700 million, you've got 72% of that money is not, I don't see it in our schoolhouses. I don't really know where it is. And to be quite frank with you, in a community like Morningside where someone will say, oh, we all have always been a good school, that's not really fair either. In the 11 years that I've been there, we have taken that school from what people would call a good school to the nation's best school. We're a 2016 National Blue Ribbon and a 2017 Green Ribbon. That did not come from our local tax dollars. That came from the community investing additional dollars into the school to provide what was missing to the staff there and to the community so that we could succeed the way that we wanted to. We're now doing the same thing at Inman. We've started our foundation in a year and a half. We've raised over $70,000, again, to enrich the lives of the teachers there and our children's there to make a stronger impact. This needs to happen throughout APS, and especially in the majority of our district where we're serving over 70% of our students on free and reduced lunch. There's no way that we can say that that is a stable and diverse community. We've got to do a better job of addressing the deficits in our schools that are Title I, that are serving students that need more than what we are offering them today.